What is going on, team? It is your friend Arakaria, and today we're going to do how to make an EDM song walkthrough from starters. So the song is already made. This song is LA Symphony, but we're going to go through it, and I'm going to show you guys how I made LA Symphony essentially from the beginning of the song to the end of the song, so that hopefully you guys can learn something and I can show you guys how to make a little music today. So, all right. On pattern 1, here we are. I made the violin like this, so put it on G6, B5, D5, G4, and then that's just how I made the pattern. If you guys need that for inspiration or whatever, you can go ahead and copy that into your own song. I layered the violin with a serum patch. This is the serum patch, and this is what the patches look like. The AP AR11 serum, if AR is analog reverb, AP are carrier processing, and then it looks something like this. So it's basically just two sine waves drowned in reverb, and then if I play, it's kind of like that. You got a little wobble here too. The LFO is moving the low pass filter with a little resonance too. The envelope is routed to the level of the sub and the level of the oscillator B. So what the purpose of that is essentially you're kind of changing the sound of your sine waves by making the attack a little bit longer too. And I swear I make all my super saws like this, is that whenever you take envelope 2 and you route them to the level, you're going to completely change the sound of your saw, your sine wave, and it's going to sound way better if you have an oscillator or two that has a little bit more attack on it. And you go to envelope 1, this is the envelope for oscillator A. This one is a lot shorter because I want the sound to still be responsive, and then when you play, it still goes fast. So you don't want the sound to sound really slow and how the whole sound take too long essentially. So what I did is have oscillator A have an attack of 25 milliseconds and then oscillator B at 100 milliseconds, and that ends up making a pretty good sound, I think. And then violin 1 is an omnisphere, and this is just dreamy string orchestra. I guess I just saved it as a preset as violin 1. It's kind of useful. You can go to here, you can go to save preset as, and then you can save whatever preset you have here and then modify it however you want here. Omnisphere has a lot of customization as well. I didn't move this stuff too much around. I think I changed this so that the violin sounded faster. I didn't modify it a whole lot. A lot of the organic sounds in Omnisphere you probably don't want to modify too much. Maybe just slightly here or there. But anyways, there's that. And when I added the sine wave, the analog reverb, patch and serum layered onto the violin orchestra from Omnisphere, the sound sounds a lot fuller, and it sounds like you're in a full orchestra hall versus just a couple violins. And serum makes the sound much larger, especially when you're using a ton of reverb. So how much reverb? Yeah, I mean, we turn the mixes all the way up, so it's 100% on the reverb mix, and then here are all the settings for this AP Analog Reverb 11 patch that I made. So look something like that. And here's what it sounds like in the song. that's the start of the song too. Let's go to P2. This is probably the best part of the song. This is the meat and potatoes of the whole thing. So if we go to pattern 2, and I use, this is really important too. Go to, where did I get this? I got this in Nexus. So click here, and it's in piano. It's in billiard. E piano 3 is the piano I used. And then we'll minimize that and go back to the channel rack. So kind of the rhythm that I made here is just, we're at 140 BPMs, and each of the starting chords are 4 of these in length, and then it just goes in threes here, and then threes, and then threes, and then the chords double in length, so they're 8 in length now, and then it just kind of goes like that. So what I've noticed too is that if you're making house music, a really good rhythm is 140 BPMs. Make these 4 in length, and then do 6 in a row, and then do 2 of these of length 8 essentially, and that's gonna make something sound, it's gonna be really easy to dance to. It's gonna sound really dancey. So if we go to the so when you're making house too, that's kind of a good formula to follow. Go 6 of these in a row so that it's 3 repeating, 1, 2 with the chords twice as long, and then just keep making a pattern like that. And it doesn't have to be exactly this chord melody that I made or this exact melody. You can obviously change up the chords. You can make it up there, down here, wherever you want to put the chords. The other thing that I did with the post-processing that just completely transforms this PN billiard piano here from Nexus, the E piano 3, is I put Maximus on the piano. So it's the only thing I did in the post-processing. But if you go to Maximus and we go to presets, I selected the max loudness 2 preset is the preset you want to use essentially. So did I add that? Max loudness 2. This is, it might not have been on actually. Okay. Anyways, play around with Maximus. This plugin I think is one of the most underrated, underused plugin in a big way, because this completely can just very easily make your pianos sound way, way better. If you have kind of a plain sounding piano and chords and you want to make something A sound louder and B make it sound a little bit better, you can just open Maximus, go to max loudness 2, and that just completely changes the sound of the piano, and the post-processing is really easy. You don't want to spend days making a song and then post-processing for too long too. You're just kind of putting yourself through a lot of pain that you don't really need to go through if you just go to Maximus, max loudness 2, and then do everything the easy way, right? So anyways, there's that, and that's the piano loop. I don't have it layered with anything. It was just that Nexus piano, and this one's really good. The billiard piano, E piano 3, I think it's pretty solid. So anyways, there's that. Let's go to P3. What is this? This is, yeah, so this is just a bass loop. I don't even remember what I did here. Yeah, I guess this is essentially just supposed to be like a bass line. I kind of don't know why I used so yeah, I used the AP saw. So I just made one of my custom saws in Silent One. Silent One is extra essential. I think Silent One sounds a little bit different than a lot of stuff in Serum. For some reason, they just don't have exactly the same sound, I think. And then here's this Serum patch that I made too. This one's kind of unique too. It's a triangle wave on a sub and Fred like bass, whatever this is kind of a weird sample, but that's what I decided to use there. So here's how that sounds. So sounds pretty good. So, and I just put the compressor on there. Not This one's not super complicated, but just kind of cook that one up really quick in Serum as well. So there's that patch, pattern 4. Where's pattern 4? Actually, yeah. So these are just hi-hat loops, really easy. Just every 2 on the hi-hat, and then just do a little hi-hat roll. So just kind of a little bit of a flavor of a trap beat in there. Some EDM has hi-hats, but most EDM does not, to be honest with you. That's something that I kind of do that's unique in my EDM and like house music too. I like to do hi-hats and hi-hat rolls. I think it gives the song a little extra groove to it, if you will. So there's that. And then P5, what do we got? P5. Okay, so here's our drum loop essentially. So this drum loop is actually pretty good. So do the kick every bar. So every first part of each, when they change color. So on the one of the black, one on the red, one on the black, and then you go here to our hand clap too. Do every other kick, and then on the 3 kick, do a double clap too, and that even gives the song a little extra groove too. I just completely, it's a little boring if you just go kick, kick, clap, kick, kick, clap. But if you do the double clap, it just makes the beat sound way better, I think. So we'll play it. The other thing is too, with the post-processing on the hand clap, on all of these, I put Fruity Reverb too. I put the size, or I guess that one doesn't have the size all the way up. I'm pretty sure I increased the size on all these claps. Yeah, so I guess these I didn't make as big as I thought. Usually I put the size all the way up. This size on the Fruity Reverb is up a little bit. And then I made the dry and wetness of this clap kind of evened out. When you first open Fruity Reverb 2, the dryness up here is kind of a little bit higher, than the wet is a little bit lower. In this case, I evened them out a little bit. And then Fruity Reverb 2, same thing. So the size I actually kept the same. I messed around with these knobs a little bit. Might have made it a little bit slower on the Fruity Reverb 2 for that one. Anyways, but the most important thing is just layering your claps, most importantly too, that when you have 3 claps, they're going to sound way larger. And it's, in my opinion, you always want to have a little reverb on your claps too. That's more of a style thing to choose from, but that's kind of what I like to do. My kicks, I don't do anything with the post processing, but all this stuff is from Splice too. I mean, any intermediate or above music producer has a little bit of Splice too. and they have tons of stuff too. And I kind of, before I started this video, I drafted all these and then started placing everything in. So this is all splice stuff. Okay, so that's pretty much the whole first part of the song. So that all that work was just like the first thing. Okay, so here is P7 now. P7, I went over here. AP saw 10 in Serum. Let's go to that really quick. Whatchamacallit? Okay, so I started, and this is just a basic super saw. This one, I think, yeah, this one's like fairly simple. Let's see. Yeah, so there's no movement on the filter. There's the most important part of this sound though is that this envelope 1 is how the oscillator A is moving. So it's 0.5 milliseconds on the attack. Envelope 2 is 100 milliseconds, and I routed envelope 2 to the level of oscillator B and to the level of the sub. And the sub is a square wave, and then the low pass filter is on for all of these oscillators. So this is how you turn the filter on, and then these indicate if the filter is being applied to each of these oscillators essentially. The LFO isn't really doing anything here. And then here's the chorus reverb and our high pass filter, and that's kind of how that looks. But this saw is pretty good. And the thing is with your saws too, your super saws, simplicity usually yields the best saws too. People over make their super saws and end up ruining them because some of the best saws that I've made are in reality the simplest ones. So keep everything simple. You don't, sometimes that much work isn't that necessary when you're making saws in Serum. So that's how I like to make saws with. That's AP Saw 10 Serum. So there is that. AP Saw 1. This is just another saw in Silent 1. There's the screen for part A. Part B, kind of the same formula, just a different format for Silent 1. But this is a pretty good. Okay, and the other thing is too, if you hear the sound is kind of bouncing a little bit, and it sounds like there's some movement in between the chords too. Why that's happening, if you go to, so I go to gross beat, and then this is where I sidechain everything. So I like to use gross beat because it's more visual and it's kind of easier to know what's happening. So if you create a sidechain, you can just go in here, and then this whole bottom part controls the volume, and then this is where the kick is happening. So this here. So that line is where the song is essentially, and then the kick is happening in each kind of dip in the sidechain too, so that the kick is kind of emphasized a little bit more too. And whenever you have a saw that is moving versus just completely like a linear volume, your song is going to sound a lot less stale. And the saws are really simple, and there's not too much going on as far as just laying down the chords, but gross beat like totally made the chords. But here's again how the chords look like. And what I like to do too is to make your chord sound way wider. I'll do just a simple chord. So here's just a basic minor chord. D minor, I think, is what this is. I don't know chords that well off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure this is D minor. And then I go a whole octave down to give the chord some bass, and then that's D4, and then 7 semitones up, give or take a few, is where I put this top chord, and that way everything sounds a lot wider as well too. And when you're making good EDM and house music, you want all of your sounds to sound very wide, very fat, if you will, is kind of how you want stuff to sound good, especially if you're at a big concert too and you got big speakers playing and everything. You want to maximize how everything sounds, right? So that's kind of how I make my chords. Here's exactly how I made the chord too. The other thing to note too is that I like to start the chords at a lower frequency and to gradually go up in frequency. And what that's doing is kind of making an uplifting emotion, or it's kind of getting happier too. So the thing that you kind of need to think about too is that higher frequencies usually correlate to more like happy, kind of feel good type frequencies, kind of uplifting, and then lower frequencies are usually more not sad, but they're just kind of, it depends on the chord too, but as a general rule, low frequencies are kind of sad, high frequencies are kind of happy. And then if you're kind of going from low to high, in my opinion, that's kind of like an uplifting chord progression, essentially, is that's kind of inducing that emotion. So that's what I did there. Yeah, so then it just keeps going on like that, and then here's the drop too. The drop, I think, is pretty good here. So what did we do on the drop? We essentially just made a bunch of kicks, go a little bit faster here. I won't bore you guys with that. It's just making the kicks go faster. It's the same loop, same everything, except for here, I just put P7. I took the end of P7 and just repeated it so that it just sounded like it was pulsing, and then it was just the same high frequency chords, just back to back 6 times in a row. And then it just drops, and then the risers keep going in this drop. That doesn't happen in every drop, but that's how I decided to make this one. P20, this is what the drum loop looks like for P20. So this, usually when you're making a drop, the beats per minute goes up. Sometimes, most of the time, not all the time though. It depends how you want to make the drop. This is just how I made this one. Anyways, this is what the drop looks like. These are the kicks, and the kicks are way more frequent. And then I have some snares, and then the claps here too. So here's that sounds pretty good just by itself too. And a lot of it too is just the post-processing too. Did I post-process these? Hold on. Okay. Yeah, so I did post-process these kicks actually. So yeah, I added a little size to this. Actually, it didn't. Hold up. Oh, that's one of the kicks. Okay, so I guess I post-processed 2 of the kicks, and this one is not. So there's the post-processing on here. Fruity Reverb 2, Gross Beat, Maximus. That is like all there is to it. Those are like the three most important plugins when you're using in post processing, and those are all with FL Studio. There's if you get good with the free stuff, there's really no need to buy all this extra marketing stuff, all these plugins that really aren't that great. The things that I will recommend is the music synthesizers, Nexus, Omnisphere, Serum, Silent One, and then just the stuff in FL Studio. That's kind of all you need in my opinion. Maybe Keyscape, but there's a lot of pianos in Nexus. So, anyways, these risers all got off of Silent One, and then this is really just the same thing. After the drop, it just goes to the same saw chord progression here. So P7 again, it's the same Serum saw. So there we go. Same chords. And then it goes into the same piano loop, and then the song just essentially ends. So that's how I made LA Symphony. There's no lyrics to this. This was just an instrumental, but it turned out pretty good too. And the song was fairly simple, but I think this was a success just because I used a lot of simple concepts and made something good too by just listening to what kind of has some groove to it and just putting the blocks together. So here's the first video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys learned something. I love it. So.